Just announced $97.4 billion bid, Elon Musk led consortium. But what we're going to see in the article that we're about to go through together is it's the structure of the offer that is genius because it's actually able to circumvent the current litigation that's going on with OpenAI. All right, let's dive in. All right, so Elon Musk led group makes 97.4 billion bid for control of OpenAI. Unsolicited offer complicates Sam Altman's plans to convert OpenAI to a for-profit company. Yeah, this is a good way to tie things up, that's for sure. All right, so let's see. A consortium of investors. All right, so this is important. It's not just Elon Musk. Is offering 97.4 billion to buy the nonprofit that controls OpenAI, upping the stakes in the battle with Sam Altman. It definitely adds a major complication. I like this. It's time for OpenAI to return to the open source, safety focused force for good it once was. We will make sure that happens. Amen. Okay, Altman responded to Musk on X, writing, "No, thank you. We will buy Twitter for 9.74 billion." Haha, he moved the decimal one. That's a good one. But chum. All right, so here's some interesting stuff. Altman and Musk co-founded OpenAI in 2015 as a charity. In 2019, after Musk left the company and Altman became chief executive, OpenAI created a for-profit subsidiary which served as a vehicle for it to raise money from Microsoft and other investors. Now, this is an important piece in terms of this article. The amount that's being offered, the 97.4 billion, is not the value of the entire company. And we're going to see who this consortium is momentarily, but ultimately that 97.4 billion would be for the amount that's not already owned by those in the consortium. So we also have to see who actually owns OpenAI slash ChatGPT. All right, so one of the thorniest questions in the conversion has been how the nonprofit will be valued. Yeah, so valuing a nonprofit is a very different process than valuing a for-profit company, namely because there's a lot of value in the ability to avoid slash not pay taxes. That's where a bulk of the value comes. But there's also a lot of different laws that are required for you to maintain a nonprofit status. So there's a lot of different issues with that. And you can't fundraise for a nonprofit relative to a for-profit company. That's why they ultimately had to change it. Like you can't invest in a nonprofit. You can invest in a for-profit entity, which is what they're talking about here. All right, so the bid is being backed by Musk's own artificial intelligence company, xAI, which could merge with OpenAI following a deal. All right, so this is important. He also has several investors backing him, including Valor Equity Partners, Baron Capital, Atreides Management, Vi Capital, 8VC, a venture fund led by Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale, who's also in the PayPal mafia, Ari Emanuel, CEO of Hollywood company Endeavor. Okay, interesting. OpenAI says Musk's legal claims are baseless and overreaching, said the nonprofit will receive full value in its ownership stake of the for-profit. Okay, this is very key here, folks. So Toporov said Musk's investor group is prepared to match or exceed any bids higher than their own. So this is probably going to start a little bit of an arms race here. If Sam Altman and the present OpenAI Inc. board of directors are intent on becoming a fully for-profit corporation, it is vital that the charity be fairly compensated for what its leadership is taking away from it: control over the most transformative technology of our time. There's the picture of the announcement right there with the 500 billion Stargate plan. And then, yeah, there's this little feud going on. Musk said that the money's not there, blah, blah, blah. So OpenAI faced numerous obstacles in what would be biggest ever conversions of a charity to a for-profit company. Meta Platforms even getting in on the act in opposition of the plan. All right, so more details, which is very important here. OpenAI has pledged to complete the transition by late 2026 as part of its 6.6 billion funding round in October that valued it at $157 billion. It's in separate talks to raise up to 40 billion in new funding that would value the company as high as 300 billion. Okay. So another key piece to this is how the offer is structured. All right, so this is very interesting right here. Submitted a bid for all the nonprofit's assets, okay? So there's a difference between an asset offer and a stock offer. So, when a company is currently in litigation or if there are legal issues with a company, that is effectively separate from the assets, unless there were some sort of lien on the assets. So, hypothetically, you could kind of like gut the company and do a carve out and like sell off the assets. It's actually an M&A defense technique. It's rarely used, but ultimately it's called the crown jewel defense, where you would effectively take the most valuable component of the entity and sell that off. So that is really what's being proposed here. And that's a key piece of this whole entire article is they're making a bid for the assets. They're not making a bid for the company. So effectively, what would happen is the litigation that's currently going on with OpenAI would effectively be irrelevant because the actual assets, the IP, all the intangibles that make ChatGPT what is ChatGPT would be gone. Another interesting thing is later on in the article where it talks about the $157 billion value. So OpenAI has pledged to complete the transition by late 2026 as part of a 6.6 billion funding round in October that valued it at 157 billion. So don't confuse the fact that 97.4 billion is the offer itself, because that's the offer for the amount that's not owned by the consortium. So there's a bunch of entities in the consortium that currently own stakes in OpenAI. So it's very important that we understand that, because this investment consortium, Valor, Baron, Atreides, Vi, some of them actually currently own. So the 97.4 billion would be for the amount that they don't already own. So one of the things that we could do is we could make a simple mathematical assumption. If 157 billion is the fair value, if you take 97.4 over the 157, that comes out to 62%. So it effectively mean that the folks that are offering with Elon Musk own 38%. So they're making a bid for the 62% that they don't own. But let's see who owns this. Boom. So Microsoft is the largest shareholder, apparently, a 49% stake. So they would definitely have a big say. Reid Hoffman, um, combined $1 billion. Okay. Peter Thiel. All right. So Reid Hoffman, PayPal Mafia, Peter Thiel also, and Elon Musk. So they list those. I'm assuming they're doing this based on order of ownership. So Microsoft owning the most and then going down from there. So who else is here? Y Combinator, Khosla Ventures, Tiger Global, Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Thrive was mentioned in the consortium, and NVIDIA. All right. So ultimately, here you have a consortium of investors that own a bunch of OpenAI already. So they're making a bid for the stake that they don't own. Ultimately, Sam Altman does not have the ability to make the decision here. He might not like this. He's having that little feud with Elon Musk. But at the end of the day, he's not the person that has the final say. It's the owners of the company. So I would say the key or the individual or company that holds all the chips would be Microsoft. If Microsoft legitimately owns whatever it was, 46 or 49%, Microsoft holds all the chips here. So if Microsoft is in on this and they say yes, there's pretty much no stopping it. Now, we would also have to look at the founding documents, the charter of the company itself, because there are certain instances where a simple majority is needed for a decision to be made in terms of a sale of the company. So that would be a 50.1% majority. Other times it would be a super majority. So in those instances, you could need 67%, 75%, or 80.1%. It all depends on what is written in the charter. So that's a key piece of information, because ultimately, if they got Microsoft to agree, and then on top of it, the current owners that are in the consortium, they're obviously going to agree. You have enough people to sell it, and it doesn't matter what Sam Altman says or does. He could try to litigate against it, saying it's not fair value, but he wouldn't really have a leg to stand on in that instance. So, what does this all mean? I think what's going to happen now is you're probably going to see other bids. I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft comes forth with a bid. That would be a logical thing for Microsoft to do, because they'd be able to get it, the piece of the stake that they don't own. So that would be an interesting play. I'd be curious to see if there's other consortiums of venture capital companies. But I think the other key piece to this puzzle is who can actually yield the most value from this purchase. So it would have to be some sort of tech entity. I don't think you could just buy it as a venture capital firm and get a significant return because the individuals who are running it would have to still remain with the company. And I don't think that would necessarily be the case. I don't think Sam Altman would be staying on um, if and when this actually goes through. So that's something that's an interesting piece there. But I would say a strategic, so XAI, obviously, Elon Musk company, because we don't really hear too much about the level of AI that's being developed there. And the key when you look at this, folks, is the value is in the number of users. It's not necessarily in the technology. This is why DeepSeek was kind of like a flash in the pan because it's all about the number of users. If you don't have people using something, the technology can be incredible, world changing, life changing, but the value is actually in the number of users and the data that they are actually bringing to the table through utilizing ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT. People watching this, you probably use it as well. That is really where the value is in the number of users. And you've already seen the fastest to 1 million users in the history of any app or social media was ChatGPT. So that is really the key piece to this proverbial puzzle is who can yield the most value from this. So I would anticipate that Microsoft will probably come forth with something. NVIDIA might as well. But there's a lot of strategics here, and that's really what makes this very interesting. So I think Elon Musk effectively did this with those other individuals to tie up things and basically say, hey, we'll drop the lawsuit if you accept this bid. But ultimately, whoever owns the company is going to be the decision maker. So this is not happening without Microsoft's blessing. And then if Microsoft blesses it, and then on top of it, you have Elon Musk and the consortium, they would probably have enough to have a majority and the deal would go through. So this is very interesting. I think this is just the beginning, and we're going to see other offers come through, possibly other investment consortiums. But my anticipation is that we are going to see an offer from Microsoft to combat this, unless Microsoft is going to be part of this consortium as well. And that's not clear based on what we see in the article. So, really wild stuff, pretty interesting. Definitely stay tuned because there's going to be a lot more to come from this. Be relentless.